The views and opinions expressed in the DILLIGAF podcast are those of the host alone and are not intended to express those of any other person, business, or entity. The DILLIGAF podcast is for entertainment only. These are my opinions and should not be interpreted as facts or advice. Think for yourself.
Keeps you up at night, yeah. Make all the demons quiet, yeah. We were built to thrive, yeah. I think that we've all had enough, yeah. I think that we've all had enough. Sick of dealing with the old plan. They know that we're calling it wrong. You got me like, oh, yeah. I think that we've all had enough.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the DILLIGAF podcast, talking about anything and everything that interests me. It makes me think, laugh, cry, scream, rage, or say, what the fuck? You'll hear about it. My name's Tom. I'm your host. I want to thank everybody for watching or listening on YouTube, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast from. Make sure you follow, like, subscribe, share, rate, comment. All that stuff really helps out the show. And also make sure you're following on social media on all platforms. You can find the show at DILLIGAF_pod. And you can find all that stuff on my Linktree, which is Linktree/DILLIGAF_pod, or scan the QR code right there in the corner of the screen. And you'll find all the links to pretty much everything. And if you ever want to shoot me an email, it's dilligafpod@gmail.com. So today we are continuing our discussion of conspiracy theories. Also, real quick, want to apologize for not having a show out last week. Like I said in the little video I posted on social media, life just kind of got in the way. It was a super busy week, so I just didn't have time to record. But here we are, and today we are talking again, like I said, about conspiracy theories, and today it is the JFK assassination. Which I call the mother of all conspiracy theories. It's my favorite conspiracy theory just because there are so many around it. And like I was saying on the last show, some of these theories are plausible. If you sit and think about it for a minute, it's like, okay, that could have actually happened. It actually makes some sense. And some of them are just ridiculous, which you'll find out as we move along here today. But so let's get into it here a little bit. I'm going to start off with the official story with the JFK assassination. And I'm saying JFK, I'm talking about John Fitzgerald Kennedy, President of the United States back in the 60s. I know, possibly some people haven't heard of him. I don't know, especially if you're not in the US. Who knows? But John F. Kennedy, former President of the United States, was assassinated while he was in office. It was November 22nd, 1963. He was on a trip to Dallas, Texas. And while he was driving through an area of downtown Dallas called Dealey Plaza, he was in an open top limousine, which you will never see a United States president doing anymore since this incident. But he was in an open top limousine, driving through Dealey Plaza, and was shot 2 times. The official story says 2 times from behind. One bullet struck him basically in the back of the neck, came out through his throat, and the second bullet hit him in the head and is what eventually killed him. And the official story says that the shooting was done by a man named Lee Harvey Oswald, former United States Marine who actually defected to the Soviet Union at one point and was allowed to come back and repatriate into the United States. And supposedly Oswald shot Kennedy from the 6th floor of the Dallas School Book Depository, which is where he worked, with an old bolt-action Italian Carcano rifle. Managed to squeeze off 3 shots in something like 6 seconds. Okay, first shot missed. The second one was the one that hit Kennedy in the throat. The third one was the headshot. Yeah, after this, in the chaos, obviously, that ensued after the shooting, Oswald was able to slip out and slip away back to his home, the boarding house where he was staying, left from there and went to a movie theater. For some reason, on the way to the movie theater, supposedly killed a police officer who stopped and tried to question him. And then he was found in this movie theater, was arrested, held in police custody. And then 2 days later, on November 24th, Lee Harvey Oswald was shot and killed while he was being transferred from the police station to the county jail, I believe it was. Shot and killed by Jack Ruby, who was a nightclub owner in Dallas. And this is the official story. There was a commission appointed by the president afterwards, Lyndon B. Johnson, when he took over as president, appointed this commission to investigate the assassination and get all of the facts of it. And the story I just told you was what the Warren Commission is what it was known as, because it was headed up by Chief Justice of the Supreme Court at the time, Earl Warren. This is the story that they came back with. It was Lee Harvey Oswald, and nobody else was involved, and that was that. And yeah, a lot of people don't buy that. And honestly, I'm one of them. I'll state my opinion before I get into some of the more popular theories about this. Me personally, I don't think Oswald was on his own. I don't necessarily buy into any of the theories that are out there. I just think there's more to it than what we're being told in the official story. I don't think one man could have pulled off this job. I just don't think it's possible. He had to have some kind of assistance from somebody somewhere. I don't know who. I don't know how they helped him or what help they gave, or if maybe Oswald is exactly what he said he was. He claimed the whole time that he was a patsy. He was being set up, and maybe he was. Who knows? We'll never know because Oswald's dead too. But yeah, a lot of people question the Warren Commission story because there were some inconsistencies and there were allegations of witnesses being intimidated, because instead of the Warren Commission bringing in independent investigators to go over the evidence and accumulate the evidence and everything, question the witnesses, they used the FBI and the CIA to question witnesses and gather evidence. And there were accusations of witnesses being intimidated, saying that, well, I heard this many shots, and the FBI agent questioning them would be like, no, you heard this many. People claim to have heard as many as 6 shots that day, but the official story says there was only 3. Now, granted, it's a big open area. We've got echoes and all other kind of noise going on. Maybe somebody threw some fireworks, who knows? But there were people who claimed to heard a lot more than 3 shots, but they were pretty much told, no, that's not what you heard. What you think you heard is not what you heard. And again, these are claims that the FBI and the CIA intimidated witnesses. There are claims that the Warren Commission just flat out ignored testimony, did not put it into the report, because there were several people who claimed to have seen smoke and muzzle flashes coming from a completely different area than the school book depository, which was behind Kennedy. People were claiming that they saw and heard shots coming from an area called the Grassy Knoll, which was in front of Kennedy. And there's a home movie out there. It's known as the Zapruder film. And it's the best evidence that there is of what happened that day. And a gentleman named Abraham Zapruder was there watching Kennedy's motorcade with his home video camera and got the assassination on film. And you can see Kennedy's head clearly does this kind of motion, line made famous by the movie JFK, which I'll talk about a little bit later. But Kennedy's head moving back and to the left as if he was shot from the front, which is where the Grassy Knoll would be, where so many people said they saw and heard gunshots coming from. But Warren Commission ignored those people's testimony, did not even take it into account. Got no testimony. There was another area in Dealey Plaza called Triple Underpass, with basically an elevated highway, and then the street that Kennedy's limo was driving on went under it. There were people in that area, again, saying that they saw smoke and smelled gunpowder and things like that. Those people were never even questioned by the Warren Commission. They confiscated cameras and film and video from other people that were there taking pictures and taking video. And those pictures and films have never, public has never seen them. They've never seen the light of day. They were supposedly confiscated by the FBI or the CIA, and the owners never got them back, and they were never put into evidence in the Warren Commission report. And like I said, none of it's ever been made public. So we have no idea what any of those things might have shown. Supposedly there were documents that were withheld. there was accusations of evidence tampering with the limousine itself, saying there's a story out there that right after the assassination, the limousine was taken, sent to the Ford Motor Factory to have the windshield replaced because there was a bullet hole in it. So and you know, which would indicate a shot coming from the front potentially, and things like that. There's a photo of Lee Harvey Oswald supposedly holding the rifle that he used to assassinate Kennedy. There's a lot of questions around that photo. It's of Lee Harvey Oswald in his backyard, supposedly, but a lot of people say that that photo is fake, that it was constructed, basically. So a lot of questions around that. Then they have the what's called the magic bullet theory. Now, basically what this says is that a single bullet, just one of those shots from Oswald, which is the one that hit Kennedy in the back of the neck, caused, I want to say it was 6 or 7 different injuries on Kennedy and the governor of Texas, who was seated directly in front of Kennedy in the limousine. Now, the original story with this magic bullet says it entered Kennedy's neck, came out through his throat, and did all these twists and turns and went through Connolly's, the governor Connolly's shoulder, came out through his chest, and then went through his arm, and then embedded into his leg. And, you know, saying it made like 3 or 4 different left and right turns in the process. That has been debunked because that was making the assumption that Kennedy and Governor Connolly were sitting in a straight line. They were not. It was a 3-row limousine they were sitting in, and Governor Connolly's seat was set in from the doors. So he was basically Kennedy's neck lined up with the governor's shoulder. So if the bullet went in the back of Kennedy's neck, came out through his throat, and continued on in a straight line, it would have gone right into the governor's shoulder. So that part, okay, but still, for a single bullet to go in and out of a human being that many times, you know, into Kennedy's neck, out his throat, into the governor's shoulder, out his chest, into his wrist, out the other side of his wrist, and into his leg. That's a lot of entry and exit wounds for one bullet. So there's a lot of questions around that. But yeah, the so-called magic bullet kind of been debunked because, like I said, Governor Connolly's seat in the limousine was set in and was lower than President Kennedy. So Kennedy was elevated and all the way on the outward part of the limousine. So they were in a straight line. That much has been shown to be true. But yeah, so all of these questions around the Warren Commission report, and then we'll get into some of the conspiracy stuff that that's talked about a lot. But first and foremost, I want to talk about the New Orleans conspiracy. And this basically what this revolves around is the district attorney of New Orleans at the time, a man named Jim Garrison, is the only person ever to bring a trial in the assassination of John F. Kennedy, and that's covered in the Oliver Stone movie JFK, which is really good movie. It's actually one of my favorite movies. So if you have time, check it out. It's a bit lengthy and it throws a lot of information at you very quickly. So it's one of those you got to pay attention to, but very interesting movie. It covers a lot of these theories, but basically saying that the assassination was a conspiracy between the CIA, the military, and basically people that were pissed off at Kennedy for one reason or another. It implicated Lyndon Johnson, like I said, the military, Cuban refugees, because this was right around the time of or shortly after the whole Bay of Pigs fiasco. You have to look that up to see exactly what it was, but it was basically a failed invasion of Cuba by the United States using Cuban exiles for the invasion, organized by the CIA supposedly, but at the last minute, President Kennedy refused to authorize air support for them, and it was just a disaster. So it was a complete failure. So supposedly those elements of the CIA, which included a pilot named David Ferry, who was supposedly the getaway pilot, him and Lee Harvey Oswald were friends from years before. A businessman named Clay Shaw, who was the one that was actually on trial for the murder of President Kennedy. He excuse me, it was later admitted that he did work for the CIA. And then former FBI agent named Guy Bannister, who was a private detective in New Orleans, they were all implicated in this big conspiracy to assassinate President Kennedy. Basically because they felt he was a danger to the country, was the bottom line. So, and it was basically a coup d'etat to get Kennedy out and elevate Lyndon Johnson to the presidency. And if that's true, it worked. But then, other theories say it was the CIA because Kennedy had signed I believe it was an executive order, basically dismantling the CIA and taking away the vast sweeping power that they have. So of course, they didn't like that because the CIA basically has no oversight. So, and that's not really a good thing. So, a lot of people say that the CIA was behind it. They say the Secret Service may have had something to do about it, because if you watch the Zapruder film, Secret Service people aren't real quick to react. The Secret Service agent in the limousine doesn't move. It's the one of the follow agents who's on foot behind the limousine that actually runs up and tries to do something, tries to protect Kennedy's wife at the time. So, and there's actually one specific theory involving the Secret Service, that it was a Secret Service agent that shot Kennedy by mistake. That saying that in the follow car behind Kennedy's limousine, once the first shot was heard, an agent in the back seat of that car reached under his seat, pulled out his rifle, stood up, and as he stood up, the driver accelerated, made him fall back, and as he did, he pulled the trigger, and that's what shot Kennedy. That's a bit far-fetched for me. That would be the luckiest shot in the history of marksmanship, to just fire blind as you're falling backwards and shoot somebody in the back of the head, hit a moving target, like what, 20 to 50 yards in front of you. So that's one of those I say, I don't think so. That one to me doesn't hold a whole lot of water. There's other people that say it was the military that masterminded the whole thing, because Kennedy did not want to get involved in the war in Vietnam. And let's face it, wars make money. And that's the bottom line. That's what keeps the military in business. And if you think the military is not a business, yeah, it's all about making money and having the biggest toys. That's called capitalism, folks, and that even applies to the military. But the military bigwigs, the generals and admirals and all of them didn't, they wanted the war in Vietnam, because wars are profitable. They always have been. That's just unfortunately the way the world works. But and then some more inconsistencies were with Kennedy's autopsy. He was taken to Parkland Hospital, which is where he was pronounced dead after the shooting, and they were going to conduct an autopsy on him there, but the Secret Service refused to let them and basically stole the president's body, because according to the doctors and everything, under Texas law, they were required to perform an autopsy in Texas, and the Secret Service refused to let it happen. They got his body out of there as quickly as possible, got it on Air Force One, and got airborne almost immediately after Kennedy was pronounced dead. But the doctors at Parkland Hospital did have time to examine Kennedy's body and made note of several wounds, entry and exit wounds and things like that. And they actually said there was an entry wound in the front of his head and an exit wound in the back. By the time they got his body back to Washington, D.C., there's another theory saying the body was switched somewhere in transit between Dallas and D.C. The wounds were completely different. It was an entry wound in the back of the head and an exit in the front, and something else inconsistent about the wound on the back of the president's neck. and the angles and things like that. And basically, people say that either Kennedy's body was altered to make it look, to make the appearance of his body fit the story that was put forward, or his body was just completely switched out with a different one with the correct type of wounds to fit the story. So it depends who you want to believe on that one. Again, I don't think that's too far fetched. We're talking about the U.S. government here, and the amount of time that they had. It could have been done. You never know. But then there was the story about the police officer that Lee Harvey Oswald supposedly shot after Kennedy on his way to the movie theater, where he was eventually caught. The officer's name was J.D. Tippit. And the way the story goes is Tippit saw Oswald walking, stopped him, started questioning him. Oswald pulled out a revolver, shot him, I think 3 or 4 times, and took off running. And they found, see, the thing that always struck me as strange about this is they found shell casings. Revolvers don't eject shell casings, but that's the type of gun that Oswald was caught with, was a revolver. So unless he stood there and emptied the chamber of his gun and reloaded while he was on the run, why would there be shell casings there if he was shot with if this cop was shot with a revolver? There's witnesses that say there was another person there that, not Oswald, somebody else was there that shot JD Tippit. One theory is that JD Tippit was supposed to kill Oswald. He was part of the conspiracy. He was actually a CIA agent. He was supposed to kill Oswald, and that would be the end of it. Oswald's the assassin. Now he's dead, and there we go. And Jack Ruby shooting Oswald was the backup plan. So then some people say JD Tippit was actually part of the assassination, possibly the one who actually shot Kennedy. That leads to another theory known as the Badge Man theory, which there's a photograph, and it's been highly enhanced over the years because obviously 1963 photo quality not that great. So, but there's a frame, I can't remember if it's from the Zapruder film or a different source, but a frame of the grassy knoll. There's a fence there, and it's a black and white picture, so it's not from the Zapruder film. It's a black and white picture, and you can kind of see the silhouette of a person, and there's something on their chest that's like shining or reflecting light, if it is in fact a person. And so they're saying it looks like a badge, and I've seen it enhanced and with color added to it to make it look like a police uniform. And it, when it's colored like that, it does resemble a Dallas police uniform. They're saying this person was standing behind the fence on the grassy knoll and was the one who shot Kennedy from the front. Now, if you watch the X-Files, you'll know it was the smoking man that shot Kennedy from the storm drain. Again, good show though. I highly recommend that as well. But yeah, so, and obviously this police officer, JD Tippit, he's dead as well, so he's not going to tell us anything either. Keep in mind, everything that I'm talking about here is theory, conspiracy theories. I'm not putting any of this forward as fact. I don't believe any of it to be fact. Like I said, I think that there is more to the story than what we're told, but I don't know what it is. I think there was more than just one person involved in it, but I don't know who else. I don't know why. I don't know when, where, how. I don't know any of that. That's just my personal theory. I think it was more than one person. And I do think Kennedy was shot from the front, just based on, what I've seen. So that's what I think. But continuing on, I just talked about the potential bodies being switched or being tampered with. Then there was another group of people that's referred to as the Three Tramps. Now, behind this grassy knoll was a rail yard. And, at that time you had people who were out of work, homeless, whatever. They would, ride the freight trains town to town looking for work. They're homeless and things like that. They're referred to as tramps at the time. That was just the term in those days. And there were 3 of these men taken into custody at the time from the rail yard, and nobody knows who they were. Never identified. There's theories as to who they were. One of them was supposedly a oh God, basically a serial killer who actually would, if you know the actor Woody Harrelson, his father was one of the people who was thought to potentially be one of these three tramps. Um, but all kinds of different theories about who these guys could have been and what their involvement in the assassination was. Of course, having ties to the CIA or the FBI, and things like that. There was another individual caught on the Zapruder film referred to as the Umbrella Man. And while Kennedy was driving by, you see this man, and mind you, is a beautiful sunny day in Dallas at the time. But you see this man open an umbrella and start moving it up and down, and people say, "Oh, that's the signal, that's the go signal for the shooters," because it was shortly after that that the shot started. So now supposedly somebody came forward years later and said, no, that was me. That was a form of protest that some obscure form of protest from, I believe, the UK or something like that. I don't even know what he was supposedly protesting. That's the guy's story, but there's people that say, nope, that was the signal man to let the shooters know that everything was a go. And people believe there was like a triangulation of fire, not only from the book depository, but from the Daltex building across the street and from either the grassy knoll or the storm drain directly in front of Kennedy, so that basically it was what they would call a turkey shoot. Like, as soon as he got into that triangulation, he was dead. There was no hope for him to come out alive. And so, yeah, there's yet another theory called the Black Dog Man. It's another photograph of a silhouette, again, behind the fence, different from the Badge Man, saying that, basically saying it looks like a dog or a person in a dog suit or a wolf man, or it was a werewolf. A werewolf killed Kennedy. That's what it was. A werewolf hiding in the trees with a rifle, and that was it. That's one that I think is absolutely ridiculous. And you can look these pictures up online, that you'll find the easiest one to find is on Wikipedia, obviously, and it's just a picture you're looking up. So it's not like, you're going there to find factual information, but just Google Badge Man and you'll find the picture that I was talking about, or Black Dog Man, and you'll find a picture of that as well. Very interesting. Another big theory is that it was the Soviet Union was behind it, the KGB, because obviously we're at the height of the Cold War. Around this time, we came closer to a nuclear conflict with Russia than we ever have before or since. This was during the what they called the Cuban Missile Crisis, where Russia was trying to build bases on Cuba, which of course is only 90 miles off the coast of the United States, off the Florida coast. So for Russia to have missile bases there with nuclear weapons is obviously a horrible danger to the US. So we nearly got into World War III right there and then. So, and when Kennedy basically stood his ground and turned the Russians back, there were some dealings being made, of course, and a lot of people weren't happy with how that situation was resolved. So, a lot of people think it was the KGB that assassinated Kennedy. Then there's the Cuban element. People think that it was Cuba that was behind it, because the United States made several attempts to assassinate Fidel Castro in those days. This was Castro striking back. And, that, again, that's a plausible theory, because the CIA has admitted, yes, we tried to kill Castro many times and failed every damn time. So, you try to kill somebody that many times, they're going to get a little pissed, and they're probably going to strike back. So that's not too far-fetched to think that maybe Cuba had something to do with it. Then there is the theory that says that the mafia organized the whole thing, which, again, not that far-fetched. There's a lot of stories out there about how John F. Kennedy was elected president, that the mafia had, lent a little bit of help, so to speak, because they had a relationship with Kennedy's father. Joseph Kennedy, who was a big political figure in the United States. And so supposedly, never any proof of this, but supposedly the mafia helped in Kennedy getting elected president. And when he was elected, he made his brother Robert Kennedy the attorney general, and he went full bore after the mafia to dismantle them and take them down as much as he could. So, the mafia saw that obviously as blatant disrespect, and that's just not acceptable to them. So, people think the mafia had a big hand in the Kennedy assassination. And then another one is Lyndon Johnson, Kennedy's vice president. Kennedy was just getting ready to run for his second term, and he had made it known privately, but made it known he did not intend to keep Lyndon Johnson as his vice president. He wanted somebody younger and somebody more, I guess, more liberal, I guess would be the right way to say it. Somebody more along his own lines of thinking. When I say his, I mean Kennedy's. So, Lyndon Johnson was basically about to be ousted. So instead of that happening, what happens? Kennedy's killed and Lyndon Johnson is now the president. So he had quite a bit to gain and quite a bit to lose if Kennedy had survived. So again, I don't think it's a far-fetched theory to say that Lyndon Johnson had some type of involvement. I'm not saying he was directly involved and hired the trigger man himself, but if there was a conspiracy, it had to have gotten approval from somewhere. So, and then there's another one that's just so left field. It's almost comical, but there is actually a theory that George Bush Sr. had some kind of involvement because at the time he was working for the CIA, and he's from Texas. So, I guess there's kind of a connection you can make there. But yeah, apparently George Bush Sr. was in Dealey Plaza that day and had, maybe he was the overseer of the whole operation. Who the hell knows? But there's a documentary out there about it. I tried to watch it, but I just could not get through the damn thing. So, but if you want to know more about that one, feel free. I don't remember the name of the documentary. There's tons of documentaries about the Kennedy assassination, looking at it from every angle you can think of. Like I said, I personally love the movie JFK just because it's very interesting. It presents a very interesting point of view and makes some valid points, in my opinion. Do I think it's true? No, I mean, that's the whole thing. There's no proof of any of this. That's why it's called conspiracy theories. And are some of them plausible? Absolutely. Could the CIA have done something like this? Hell yes, they could. Could the military have? Yes. Secret Service? Probably. The FBI? Probably. J. Edgar Hoover was no fan of Kennedy. So, not a big stretch to think that maybe J. Edgar Hoover had some involvement in it, or the FBI as a whole. And if there was some kind of conspiracy, obviously it's got to be covered up. So there you have the Warren Commission with the suppressing evidence and ignoring testimony, fabricating evidence, falsifying things. But you also have to take into account, you got the CIA, the FBI, the Secret Service, the military, the mafia, the vice president, the Dallas Police Department, what else? Russia, Cuba. You're talking thousands of people that would have to be involved in this at one level or another. And I mentioned it in the first episode about conspiracy theories. There's that old saying, the only way two people can keep a secret is if one of them is dead. You're talking thousands of people having to keep this secret. Now, granted, there have been some mysterious deaths surrounding the Kennedy assassination as far as like witnesses and things like that. Not nearly as many as some people would purport there to be. I mean, there's people out there that say, oh, there have been hundreds of, mysterious deaths around the Kennedy assassination, and they got this huge list, but if you really look at it, some of these people died decades later of a heart attack. That's not a mysterious death, you know. Now, the witness who was found dead on the side of the road 3 days after saying they're going to kill the president after she, while she was in the hospital. Look that one up. That one's interesting to me. Yeah, that's a mysterious death. This lady supposedly had knowledge of what was going to happen in Dallas, and a couple days later, they find her dead on the side of the road. So, there have been some mysterious death, not nearly as many as some people would like there to be. So there is a lot of mystery and a lot of questions around the death of JFK. And a lot of the documentation at this point has been released. The stuff was like sealed and locked away since 1963. And I think the most recent documents got released in 2022. So, you're talking 60 years almost. And, nothing significant has been found in any of this documentation that was kept secret for so long. And I think at this point they said 98% of all documentation taken as evidence or whatever it might be has been released. Do I believe that's true? I don't know. I don't fully believe that. Like I said, I think there's more to the story than just what we're told. I think there's more than just Lee Harvey Oswald perched in a window, 200-300 yards away with a cheap Italian rifle that had that was not good as far as accuracy or reliability. So, I personally do think there's more to it, but just the scope of some of these theories makes it impossible to me, in my opinion. That many people can't keep a secret. It's just not, it goes against human nature. So if there was some big vast conspiracy, I think somebody would have talked. I mean, Jack Ruby was one person. He was the man that killed Lee Harvey Oswald. He actually died in prison. He wasn't killed or anything like that, but he did talk to the Warren Commission. He basically wanted to be taken into protective custody before he would talk, because he would not say anything. And he died of cancer while he was in prison, and he said they gave it to him while he was there. So I don't know about that. He might have been a little bit nutty, who knows? But he, again, apparently had some strong mob connections, and so that's one thing that leads people to think that the mafia was involved in the assassination. And again, like I said, Robert Kennedy, the Attorney General at the time, was just going hard after the mafia, wanted to completely dismantle them, wanted to eliminate organized crime in the U.S., which lofty goal, probably never happened completely, but again, another reason for the mafia to want to take some action against the Kennedy family. And then a few years later, Robert Kennedy himself was assassinated while he was running for president. And there's a lot of questions around his assassination and the person who supposedly shot him. And I'm not even going to get into all that, but it's just an extension of the JFK assassination. So there's a lot of interesting theories out there. I definitely, if any of this has caught your interest, caught your attention, go look it up, read into it further, because you could spend days just reading and watching documentaries and just compiling information about the JFK assassination, because people obsess over it. I was accused of obsessing over it by someone who shall not be named. Let's just say we don't speak anymore. But it was, it was said to me, "Oh, you're so obsessed with it." I'm like, no, I find it freaking fascinating. I want to learn as much as I can about it. There's all these theories out there. I want to learn all of them. And to this day, I don't think I've read all of them, because there's just that many of them out there. But so yeah, definitely go do some research for yourself, do some reading. Like I said, watch some of the documentaries. Some of them are really good, some of them are crap, and you'll be able to tell the difference very quickly, believe me. So yeah, I think that's gonna wrap it up for this week. Hope hope I've given you some information. Maybe you didn't know, make you want to go look some stuff up for yourself. Now, next week, I'm going to be talking about another really cool conspiracy theory. Going to be talking about the theories around Paul McCartney dying. Now, Paul McCartney is still alive, folks, one of the founding members of the Beatles, but there was, rumors and stuff out there for so long, quote unquote, Paul is dead. And be getting into that. Hopefully, I'm hoping to have a guest on the show next week who will help me get into the whole Paul is dead theory. But until then, I hope everybody has enjoyed the show. Thank you again for watching or listening on YouTube, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast from. Make sure you follow, like, subscribe, share. Please share. Get some more eyes and ears on the show. Rate, comment, all that kind of stuff really does help out the show. Follow on social media. It's at DILLIGAF_pod on all socials. And you can find everything at Linktree/DILLIGAF_pod, or scan the QR code right here in the corner of the screen. That'll take you to all of the links for all the social medias and all the podcast platforms and all that kind of fun stuff. And of course, if you ever want to shoot me an email, it's dilligafpod@gmail.com. Give me your comments, give me your questions, interact with me. I want to hear from you guys. So let me know what's up. And as always, if anyone has any kind of issues with anything that I have said here today, ask yourself one question. Do I look like I give a fuck? Oh yeah, we want retribution.